supply chain management solutions. We have a deep pedigree and expertise and possibly some of the best IP that has existed around supply chain solutions from organizations like I2, Manudistic, C3, etc. And that's what JDA now brings to the table in an integrated fashion. In terms of a few fast facts about the organization, we are a $1.1 billion organization globally. Like I said before, we are a leader in the niche space of supply chain planning and execution. So that's where we operate. Just to share a few statistics with you, so JDA is about 4,500 employees strong globally, and out of those, almost like 1,750 employees are based out of India. And these employees cut across sales, support, product development, consulting services, and implementation services. So there is a large pool of resources of JDA that are based out of India, and so therefore India is really strategic to JDA's own global plans. I think supply chain adoption is a function of the sort of business processes that an organization or an industry has. Also a function of where an organization or an industry is in terms of their own maturity on these processes. So in that sense, I would say there is a bit of a lag in terms of how some of these supply chain solutions have been adopted by Indian companies. However, at the same time, I think for the last decade or so, industries like manufacturing, retail and distribution have been seeing a lot of adoption of supply chain solutions in India. What we see as emerging trends is as the situation becomes more competitive, as the economy becomes tougher, which is what the situation currently is, there is actually a need for organizations to become more agile on their supply chains to be able to respond to that. So therefore, some of the trends, the emerging trends that we notice as organizations that go and engage with these supply chain leaders is that there is talk around integrating the entire supply chain solution as one single sort of end-to-end view. So if I could use that term called shelf-connected supply chain, that is something which is really being looked at as the next set of supply chain adoptions. And along with that, there is a need for these supply chains to be segmented along the lines of businesses that companies have started operating in. So those top of the mind to me are some of the trends that we notice with the Indian companies as we engage. Some of the challenges very peculiar to India or in the Indian context are essentially around the infrastructure of supply chain. If you look at the execution side of things, so technology is still not all pervasive. We still have the N-mile issues in India, and those are the ones that essentially add their own complexities to any supply chain solution being deployed successfully. So while planning is still within the four walls of the organization, and that's where I think organizations have matured to be able to do those planning deployments fairly successfully. But when it comes to the execution side of supply chain solutions, that's where, because of the infrastructure, because of things being outside the organization's own boundaries, there are issues that crop up around infrastructure, around connectivity, and so on. It's a function of what are the business priorities and the strategic vision that the organization has. And stemming from that is where an organization would typically draw out their supply chain plans. So if you are an organization which is more on the customer side and the consumer side, you possibly need to be more agile on the front-facing applications, which could be the demand and forecasting and so on. Whereas if you are an organization which is more on the B2B side, there is a need for you to possibly align yourself more to those specific customers, know them well, and possibly run your entire plans or supply chain plans around what they do. So tightly couple your supply chain to the supply chain of the end customer. I think it's end of the day, it's a business decision that we are looking at. So therefore, I guess how companies would evaluate this is in terms of whether there is a supply chain process that resides within their organization or they actually outsource it is a function. It's like a simple cost benefit analysis, if I would put it simply. So you have to look at what is it that you gain by doing a process in-house, what are the sort of cost imperatives of doing it in-house, vis-a-vis if you outsource a supply chain process, what is it that you end up losing in terms of control, and is that good enough if there are cost benefits that you're getting. So essentially you weigh the pros and cons, you evaluate if that is a strategic process in the company's scheme of things, and that's how I guess an organization will really determine whether they keep their supply chain processes in-house, and also if they want to outsource some part of their supply chain to a third party. Like for India, in particular, there is a trend towards outsourcing your logistics processes, right? That's something which is common, that's something which is also gaining a lot of momentum going forward. We are quite positive about the way the Indian market is shaping for us, and some of the reason for that is that now is when if you compare to any time in the past, because of the economic situation, I think supply chain is becoming very, very critical to be able to drive some of the top line and bottom line goals that organizations have. So in that sense, we see a lot of interest and a lot of initiatives around supply chains happening across the manufacturing, retail and distribution industry. We've been present in India for quite some time now, and some of the industry leaders in some of the manufacturing, retail and distribution industries here in India use JDA. So on the manufacturing side, there are organizations like Tata Steel, Asian Paints, GlaxoSmithKline, Torrent Pharma that use JDA solutions. Some of the key retail customers that JDA has in India include Shoppers Stop, Aditya Birla Retail, Future Growth, etc.